My 30F partner, 33M of 10 years, confessed he's gay last night. How do I process this? Last night, my world turned upside down. I, 30F, was sitting on the couch with my partner, 33M of 10 years, the man I've loved since I was 20, when he took a deep, shaky breath and told me he's gay. Just like that. Matter of fact, out of nowhere, the life I thought we were building together completely shattered. I feel like I'm in a bad dream, numb 1 second, and hysterical the next. I haven't slept, I haven't eaten. I don't know how to process this, how to process anything right now. For a bit of background, I'll call my partner D. D and I met in college. He was funny, kind, a little shy. We became best friends fast, and by the end of my sophomore year, we were inseparable and officially a couple. For the past decade, D has been my rock, and I thought I was his. We moved in together at 22 and 25, got through grad school and first job side by side, even adopted a dog together 5 years ago, our fur baby, a goofy lab mix named Sasha. We talked about getting married someday, but neither of us was in a rush. I used to joke that we were basically an old married couple anyway, so what's a piece of paper? 10 years. 10 years of love, partnership, intimacy, or so I believed, which is why I'm so blindsided. If he had told me he cheated, or that he didn't love me anymore, or any typical relationship-ending scenario, maybe I'd have some script in my head for this. Something to be angry at, or some way to understand. But this? He's gay. How am I supposed to respond to that? Part of me wants to scream, and part of me just wants to hold him and say it's okay, because I know this had to be so hard for him to say, but it's not okay. Selfishly, I'm devastated. I feel betrayed, and also guilty for feeling betrayed, if that makes sense. I should probably recount how it went down. It was around 8 p.m. I remember because we were halfway through watching some random Netflix show, and I noticed D wasn't laughing at a scene he'd normally laugh at. He looked distant. I asked if he was feeling okay. He muted the TV, turned to me, and he had tears in his eyes. My heart jumped into my throat. I thought someone had died, or he was sick or something. He could barely get the words out, voice cracking. I need to tell you something that I should have told you a long time ago. My mind went to the worst possible things immediately. I said nothing, just stared as he struggled. And then he just blurted it out, voice barely above a whisper. I'm gay. I think I just said, what? Like I didn't hear him? He started crying, actual sobs. I had never seen him cry like that. I went into some kind of autopilot. I remember I put my hand on his back and said, it's okay, which is crazy because it was not okay, but I didn't know what else to do as he fell apart in front of me. I didn't fall apart, not yet. I was oddly calm, maybe in shock. I held him while he cried, for I don't know how long. I kept saying dumb soothing things like, I'm here, and just breathe. Honestly, I think my brain short-circuited. When he finally could speak, he started apologizing profusely. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Over and over. That's when I started crying too, I think. The reality was sinking in like a knife twisting in my gut. I asked him, so, what does this mean for us? A stupid question, maybe, but I had to hear it. He just shook his head and said, I never meant to lie to you. I thought, maybe I could keep going and it would be enough because I do love you, but... And then he couldn't finish the sentence. But I knew. He didn't have to say the words break up or end or whatever. It was implicit. I wish I could say I was mature and composed, but at that point I just lost it. I remember standing up and backing away from him like he was a stranger. I started babbling. Louder than I intended, I think. 10 years, D? 10 years, and you tell me now? What am I supposed to do with that? Was anything real? I was ugly crying, couldn't see straight. He looked so small, sitting on the couch, face in his hands, saying, it was real, it was all real to me, I swear, I'm sorry. I was simultaneously heartbroken and angry and confused. It's like every stage of grief all at once on fast forward. I asked him if there was someone else. I think part of me desperately wanted there to be another guy, some affair, so I could latch my anger onto that instead of this intangible revelation. He shook his head vigorously. No, there's no one else. I haven't. I never cheated on you. I just can't lie to myself or you anymore. That, anymore, stuck with me. It implied he's known, or at least suspected, for a while, and that stings almost as much as the revelation itself. How long had he known? How many years of our relationship was he struggling with this secret? I was drained and overwhelmed. I think we were both crying. At some point, he tried to reach for me, to hug me maybe, but I pulled away. I couldn't. Not right then. I ended up leaving the living room and going to our bedroom and locking the door. He didn't follow. He just softly said through the door, "I'll give you space. I'm so sorry." I could hear in his voice he was crying again. And me? I just collapsed on the floor against the bed and kind of went catatonic. My mind was racing with a million thoughts. Our relationship was a lie? He doesn't love me. Or does he, but not like that? Did I do something to cause this? I know being gay isn't caused by someone, but irrational thoughts happen. Was it something about me? Was I not enough? How could I not have known? Am I an idiot for not seeing signs? Speaking of signs, in hindsight, there were things. We hadn't been very intimate in the past year, which I attributed to stress. He had a new job that ate up his energy. He always felt a bit uncomfortable with PDAs, but I thought he was just reserved. And there were small moments. Like once, maybe 3 years ago, I walked in on him looking at something on his laptop late at night, and he slammed it shut and said it was a work email. At the time, I laughed it off, teasing him that it looked like he was caught watching porn, and he got oddly defensive, then later overly apologetic as if I was actually upset. I wasn't. Now I'm wondering if it was porn, but not the kind I assumed. Little puzzle pieces like that are falling into place, and it's messing with my head. I spent most of the night alternating between sobbing, staring at the ceiling, and doom-scrolling online trying to see if I could find stories of anyone who'd gone through something similar. Eventually, exhaustion must have taken over because I woke up this morning curled up on top of the covers, eyes swollen, head pounding. For a split second, I forgot. I reached out for D on the other side of the bed, but it was empty. He slept on the couch, I later found out. And then it all hit me again like a truck. When I finally emerged, he was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept either. The awkwardness was something new and horrible between us. This is a man I've seen every morning for years, shared silly banter with about needing caffeine, exchanged kisses in our PJs. Now we were like strangers. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but I just shook my head and went to the bathroom without a word. I didn't trust myself to talk yet. In the bathroom, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Red puffy eyes, hair a mess, face just empty. I turned on the shower to have some noise cover me crying again. After, I felt a bit more steadied and decided to talk to him because honestly, what else can I do? This situation isn't one I can just avoid. It's literally my life imploding. So we finally talked, like really talked. A few hours ago at the kitchen table, it was emotional and confusing and painful. I'll try to summarize the key points. How long has he known? D said he suspected or had feelings since his late teens, even before me, but thought maybe it was a phase, or that he was bi and could ignore the men part. He said when he fell in love with me, he truly did love me, and thought that meant maybe I was all he'd need, that those other feelings would just go away. They did not go away. He didn't go into great detail, but he said in the last couple of years it had been eating at him. He felt like he was living a lie, and it was making him depressed. I do recall him having bouts of depression, which I tried to support him through, never knowing the cause. Why now? I asked him, maybe a bit angrily, why he chose now to tell me, after 10 years. Why not earlier? Or hell, why not never, if he planned to shoulder this burden? I know that wasn't fair, but it spilled out. He looked so guilty, and said he couldn't bear the guilt and pain he was causing both of us by not telling me. That recently, whenever we talked about future plans, we were considering trying for a baby next year, he'd feel this panic and shame because he knew deep down that he was deceiving me. He said he finally realized it wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't fair to either of us to keep pretending, so he mustered the courage to come out to me. What now? We both know that we can't stay together romantically. He didn't explicitly say, we need to break up, because it was kind of obvious, but we acknowledged that our partnership as we knew it is over. That was a quiet moment. We just sat there, both crying softly, holding our coffee mugs. Surreal. He said he's willing to move out or do whatever I need. We rent our place, and our lease is up in a few months, but obviously neither of us expects to continue cohabiting long-term after this. I told him I honestly couldn't think that far yet. The idea of him just leaving after 10 years makes me want to vomit. But also sitting across from him right now is painful, so I don't know. We didn't really touch the topic of whether he's going to start dating men now or if he has someone in mind. He claims no, and I believe him. He's an awful liar, ironically, except apparently this huge lie of omission. Part of me doesn't even want to know right now, because that's a whole other wave of emotion I'm not ready for. After our talk, I went out to get some air. I ended up at a nearby park just wandering. I called my older sister and told her everything. She was shocked. She likes Dee a lot and was expecting us to be married eventually. She mostly listened while I cried and rambled. She offered for me to come stay at her place for a bit if I need to, which I might take her up on, at least for a night or two. I haven't told anyone else yet. I'm dreading telling my parents. They adore Dee. We all spent last Christmas together, and my mom basically considers him a son-in-law already. How do I even begin to explain this to them? Right now, I'm back home, sitting on the bed as I type this. Dee is quietly playing with Sasha, our dog, in the living room, trying to act normal, I guess, giving me space. My heart breaks seeing him like this and knowing we're both hurting so deeply in our own ways. I know he's not a villain. In fact, a part of me aches for what he must have gone through internally all these years. It must have been hell for him. I can't imagine living with that secret and fear. In a strange way, some of my tears are for him too, for the pain he endured and the pain he's in now, seeing what it's done to me. I still love him. Maybe I always will in some way, and I wish I could just be there for him like I've always been. But I'm also shattered and have to confront the reality that the life I thought I had is gone. I keep swinging wildly between empathy and anger. Like, one minute I want to hug him and tell him I understand, and I'll be okay eventually, and the next minute I'm furious thinking about how I devoted a decade to someone who knew he couldn't ultimately be with me the way I thought. I feel robbed. I feel like I was unknowingly part of some long-term lie, even if he didn't intend it maliciously. Is it wrong that I feel kind of used? Like I was some cover or safety net while he figured himself out? Ugh. Then I instantly feel awful for thinking that, because I truly don't believe he ever meant to use me. He loved me, I don't doubt that. But maybe more as a best friend or pertwine. I don't know, it's so confusing. So, yeah. I'm a mess. I have to figure out how to move forward, how to untangle our lives. We have shared finances, shared friends, this apartment, our dog, and more than that, shared memories and routines and everything. It's like I have to undergo an emotional amputation, cutting him out of that role of partner and somehow continuing on. I'm posting here because I genuinely need advice or at least some outside perspective. How do I even begin to process this? How do I cope with the heartbreak and be supportive, if I even can, of him embracing who he is? Is it possible to stay friends after something like this, or do I need to distance myself completely to heal? I feel so alone and humiliated, even though logically I know I didn't do anything wrong. It's just not a situation I ever imagined being in. If anyone has been through something remotely similar, being in a long, straight relationship that ended because one person came out, please share how you got through it. Or if you haven't, just any kind words or insight. I'm just lost. I don't hate him. I can't. But I'm hurt and scared that I'll never trust my own life or relationship again. 10 years suddenly feels like it was a beautiful story with a cruel twist ending, and now I have to start from scratch at 30, heartbroken and confused about my own past. Sorry if this is rambling or doesn't make sense. I'm running on fumes and emotions. I appreciate anyone who took the time to read this. TLDR, my long-term partner, who I deeply love and planned a future with, revealed he's gay. I'm in shock, heartbreak, and don't know how to handle the mix of betrayal and compassion I feel. Any advice on coping and what to do next is welcome. Update 1. Hi everyone. I wasn't sure if I should post an update, but a lot has happened in the 2 weeks since Dee dropped the news, and writing it out might help me sort through it, and maybe help someone else in a similar spot someday. First, I want to say thank you for the outpouring of support and advice on my original post. I cried reading many of the comments and messages, in a good way, feeling seen and not so alone. I wish I could hug all of you who shared your stories and kind words. So, here's what's been going on. The first few days after my post were extremely rough. I ended up taking my sister's offer and went to stay at her place for about 4 nights. I just needed space away from our apartment and from Dee to process. Dee understood and said he would take care of Sasha, our dog, and that I could take all the time I need. Packing a bag to leave my own home, from the man I've lived with for a decade, was heart-wrenching. I felt like a stranger in my own life, if that makes sense. Before I left, we had a quiet moment where he asked if he could hug me. We hadn't touched since that first night. I was hesitant, then I let him, and we both started crying again. It was so emotionally confusing. Here I am in the arms of the man who broke my heart, feeling comforted by him. My emotions are a tangled mess of love, grief, and pain. At my sister's, I had a bit of a breakdown one night. Around midnight, I was just hit with this overwhelming anger. I realized I hadn't really allowed myself to feel angry in front of Dee because I was too busy being empathetic or in shock. But that night, I ranted to my sister, saying things like, "How could he not tell me earlier? Did he just waste my youth? Was I just a goddamn beard this whole time? I rarely swear, but oh boy, that night I did." My sister, bless her, just listened and let me get it all out. I think I needed to let those ugly feelings surface. I was so angry at him in that moment. And you know, it's weird. I felt guilty for feeling angry because he didn't choose to be gay. But I learned from some comments and my sister's advice that my anger is valid. It's part of the grieving process, and it doesn't make me a bad person or an LGBT phobe or anything. I'm not angry that he's gay. I'm angry about the situation and the years of deception, even if it was self-deception on his part too. After venting, I felt a bit calmer, and then came a wave of deep sadness again. I missed him. Despite everything, I missed my best friend. I caved and texted him, just a simple, "Hope you're doing okay." He replied almost instantly that he was thinking of me and hoped I was okay too. We ended up having a late-night text conversation, basically checking in on each other. He told me he had come out to his older brother in the last few days. Apparently his brother was supportive. Yay for that. Dee also said he hadn't told his parents yet. They're pretty conservative, and he's dreading that. I felt a pang of sympathy. I know how hard coming out can be, and realized that while I was drowning in my own hurt, he was going through his own turmoil, separately. The weirdest thing is wanting to comfort the person who caused your pain, simply because you love them, and old habits die hard. We eventually decided I would come back home to the apartment to talk in person and figure out logistics, once I felt ready. I returned home after those 4 days and we had a long, serious conversation. It was emotionally charged but surprisingly civil and gentle. We both approached it almost like a breakup conversation you might have with a lot of closure, I guess because that's what it was. Key points/decisions from that talk. We agreed that continuing to live together indefinitely would be too difficult for both of us. I said I felt like I was in limbo, unable to start healing while seeing him every day. He admitted it was hard for him too, because he felt constant guilt seeing me and not being able to comfort me as a partner. Our lease is up in 3 months, but we decided to break the lease early. Thankfully, our landlord is a decent guy, and when I explained, perhaps overshared, a bit about the breakup situation, he was understanding and agreed to let us end the lease in 1 month without penalty if we find new tenants. We've already found a new renter to take over. The rental market is crazy, so it wasn't hard. Who moves out? Initially, I assumed I'd be the one to move. I even already stayed at my sister's, etc. But Dee surprised me by insisting he should be the one to go. He said he could crash with his brother for a while, and that he didn't want to uproot me more than he already had. I was touched by that. Ultimately, though, we decided I would actually move in temporarily with my sister after the lease ends, just for a couple months, while I look for my own place. Dee's going to move out next week to his brother's, and I'll stay in the apartment alone for the remaining weeks to pack up and handle the tenant transition. That might sound lonely, but I think I need that solitary time in the space to sort of say goodbye to this chapter of my life, on my terms. We figured out splitting our stuff. We're amicable enough that it wasn't a fight at all. In fact, it was depressingly cordial. You keep the couch, I'll take the dining set, that kind of thing. When it came to smaller things like kitchen stuff and decor, I honestly didn't care much. The one thing that we did get emotional about was Sasha, our dog. We both love her to pieces. I got her from a shelter with Dee right there beside me. She's truly our dog. At first, Dee said, obviously Sasha should stay with you, presumably because he felt I needed her more for emotional support. But I saw the look on his face. He was hurting at the thought of not having her too. I suggested maybe we do a sort of shared custody, at least for now, until we have our own stable places, and see what makes sense. Like he can take her to his brother's a few days a week, and I have her the rest. It might be overcomplicating things, but neither of us could bear to lose her on top of everything. We'll see how that works out. If it's too hard, we might revisit and make a more firm decision. One of my friends said I should keep the dog for good because he owes me that, but Sasha's not a bargaining chip. She's family to both of us. We also discussed the possibility of staying in each other's lives, That part was rough. D very much wants to remain friends if possible. He actually said, "You are my best friend. I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." I teared up because I feel the same, except I also know that I can't just pivot to being best buddies if it's too painful. I told him I need at least some significant time with low contact to heal and figure out what I want. He said he understands, though I could see it made him sad. We tentatively agreed that after we separate living spaces, we'll not hang out or talk much for at least a couple of months, then maybe check in and see how it feels. Honestly, I'm not sure how that will go. I worry that if I keep too much contact, I'll never properly move on. But the thought of no contact feels like grieving a death. It's like choosing between twisting two knives, losing my partner and losing my friend. On the emotional side of things, I've continued riding this roller coaster of feelings. One big development is I started seeing a therapist. Thanks to those who recommended it. I've had 2 sessions so far, and I've basically just unloaded the whole saga on her. She's been great in validating my feelings and also helping me separate my self-worth from this situation. Because I'll admit, my self-esteem took a weird hit. I found myself thinking, was I not woman enough? Not sexy enough? Did I turn him gay because I'm lacking? I know logically that's not how sexuality works, but emotions aren't logical. My therapist helped me reframe those thoughts. D being gay has nothing to do with me or anything I did or didn't do. He didn't choose me as a partner because I was lacking. He chose me because he loved me and likely thought he could be what I needed, until he couldn't. It helps a little to remind myself that I was loved, and I did make him happy in ways I could, just not in the way that could change his core truth. I also have moments of empathy where I think about how he must have felt, struggling with identity, possibly afraid or in denial. I imagine him coming to terms with being gay while in a relationship with me and feeling trapped and scared. It makes me cry for him, oddly enough. But then sometimes that empathy flips and makes me bitter. If he knew before we moved in together, before we adopted a dog, why did he let it get this far? It's a ping pong in my head. The therapist said both lines of thought are normal. Empathy because I care about him, anger because I'm human and was hurt. Now, here's the kicker, and I'm almost ashamed to admit how much this affected me. I learned something that felt like a second punch in the gut. While packing, I found an old USB drive of D's. I was checking what was on it. I thought maybe photos or something to give him. And I stumbled on a folder of documents. I know snooping is wrong, and I wasn't intentionally snooping, but I did open one file that had my name on it out of curiosity. It turned out to be an unfinished letter, or maybe just a personal journal thing, that D wrote to me, dated about 1.5 years ago. In it, he was basically pouring his heart out, confessing that he thinks he's gay and doesn't know how to tell me, and how he's terrified of losing me. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. And I just sat on the floor, reading this gut-wrenching, raw outpouring from the man I love, written long before he had the guts to say it to me in person. My hands were shaking. He knew, at least strongly suspected, for at least 1.5 years, and was living with that conflict every day. In the letter, he wrote lines like, "She deserves someone who can love her the way she loves me, completely and without hiding. But I'm a coward. I can't break her heart. I can't break my own." That broke my heart anew, but in a different way. It was like for the first time I truly saw his anguish in all this. It doesn't excuse anything, but it made me sob like I hadn't sobbed since the first night. I wish he had given me that letter back then, or talked to me then. But he wasn't ready. And in his fear of breaking both our hearts, the heartbreak only amplified with time. I haven't told him I found that letter. I'm not sure I ever will, because I don't want him to feel violated that I read something not meant for my eyes, at least not yet. But in a way, I'm glad I saw it. It gave me insight and, oddly, some peace. Like, this wasn't easy for him. It wasn't some cavalier decision or something he hid lightly. He did agonize over it, over me. He wasn't out partying behind my back or living a double life, as far as I can tell. He was just stuck and scared. Now, that doesn't erase my pain, but it softens the edges of my resentment somewhat. It makes me feel more compassionate, which is a double-edged sword because it also makes me love him that much more for how deeply he cared about me, and then I get sad all over again that we can't be together. As of now, the plan is in motion. D moves out in a few days. We've been cordial, kind, even sharing occasional sad smiles in passing, but mostly giving each other space. It's like this unspoken heavy cloud in the apartment. Sometimes I just go to the bathroom to cry so he won't hear me, and I suspect he does the same in the shower. I dread the actual moment he leaves. I think that's when it will truly hit like, this is over. I honestly don't know how I'll handle watching him walk away, or if I should even watch. Maybe I'll have my sister or a friend over that day to distract me after he's gone, so I don't crumble completely. We also need to figure out how/what to tell our friends. So far I've told 2 close friends. He's told a couple of his. We haven't made any kind of announcement beyond that. It feels awkward because typically people say, we broke up. But in this case, there's this extra layer. I decided I'll be truthful with those I'm close to. I'll say D realized he's gay, and so we're amicably parting ways. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and I kind of hate the idea of hiding it like it's some dark secret. On the other hand, it's also not something you want to broadcast to acquaintances. I don't know. One step at a time, I guess. Emotionally, where am I now? Still heartbroken, still on an unpredictable wave of grief. But I will say, the sharpness of the initial shock has dulled. Some days, I can actually get through without crying, or only tearing up a little. I've thrown myself into work more, which is a welcome distraction. My boss knows something is up and has been gentle with deadlines, which is nice. Nights are the worst. The bed feels big and empty even when he's still in the other room. I suppose that will only get worse once he's physically gone, but eventually it'll get better, right? I also did something symbolic for myself. I bought a journal, a really nice one with a pretty cover. And I started writing letters to myself, to him, not to send, to the universe, whatever I feel like. It's been oddly cathartic. One night I even wrote a goodbye letter to the life I thought I was going to have with D. You know, the future, imagined marriage, kids, growing old together stuff. I cried through it, but afterwards I felt a tiny bit lighter, like I acknowledged that loss in writing.